Yes, good morning. So I'll be talking about monitoring applications and how you can get from simple text logs to a more extensive monitoring where you get informed about errors when they occur. My name is Sven Finke, as I was already introduced. I'm a developer for Shopware Connect, which is um, a marketplace solution. Just to give you a brief overview, because I will reference this a few times. It's a solution where suppliers and merchants can connect to one another, and the supplier can upload products, merchants can subscribe to them, orders will be synchronized, prices, how many products are in stock. All of that must be synchronized over our application, and that as quickly as possible and as accurate as possible. We're working with different components and with a queue that is handling all that stuff. So everything is put into the queue and work from there. A beanstalk queue, if anyone worked with that before, is quite hard to monitor or to debug. You can see how many jobs are in there, but not that easily what kind of jobs, and you can only peek the next job that is ready, and it's hard to really get a hang of what's going on. Yeah, Connect itself consists of 7 individual components. These are things like an indexer, an updater component, sales data component, which is responsible to synchronize orders and stuff like that. We have 4 servers. 2 servers are the live environment. They are behind a load balancer. Another server is for the QA, and another server is a demo environment for our sales or other stuff. We have on each server running 22 cron jobs running. In addition to that, 33 workers. 22 cron jobs, sorry. In addition to that, 33 workers that are doing some stuff. So there is a lot of stuff going on that I need to look at and find out what state it is in currently. Right now we have 2,300 users and close to 700,000 products. We generate around about 30 gigabytes of log files per month. That depends a bit on the situation, if we get new customers or anything. So sometimes it's a bit less. Sometimes I think the most we had until now was 60 gigabytes in 1 month. So what is background monitoring? Monitoring itself is like keeping the state of stuff, and you can monitor the health status of your web server by simply executing a curl on it and seeing if you get a 200. If not, then something's wrong. With background tasks, it's a bit different. I can't simply curl a server if some process is running. I have to keep track of that. And as you've seen, we have 33 workers running. So keeping track of how many of them are currently running can be quite troublesome. And if something goes wrong, you have to dig into log files and everything. So but how does it look without this background monitoring? So just how it works in the worst case. So probably instead of finding a bug, you will be getting feedback. So playing sync is not working. You will get this feedback from your product owner or from your customer, which would be the worst case. Maybe my products are not updated, or in the worst case scenario, my site is down. Probably your whole team will go like, fuck, we have to fix this. But to fix this, we have to gather intel, dig through log files, or do anything that we can go through. This is a screenshot of log files from our staging environment. Of course, with a bit of log rotate, because the log files are getting quite big, and if you have to find an error, it can be quite troublesome to dig through all these log files, especially if you're trying to find an error from a few days ago, like on Friday evening something crashed, and on Monday morning you will get informed about that, and good luck. especially on the live environment. Like I said, that we have 2 servers behind the load balancer, so you have to find out which one of these caused the problems at first. And yeah, if it's a bug from a few days ago, yeah, good luck again. Yeah, what's the problem with this? The error already exists, so if you get informed that the site is down, yeah, the site is down, so you can't do anything about it, just really fix it, but the error is persisting, it's there, and yeah, until you fix it, it won't be gone. Customers recognize errors even if you are not informed by the customer of some errors. They will probably notice it by the time you've fixed it. So yeah, finding stuff can be quite hard, like I just have shown in the log files. Digging through them on multiple servers in the same environment is quite troublesome. And time, like I said, the error is persisting, and until you fixed it, it won't be gone. So yeah, you need to fix it as soon as possible, and that can be quite hard if it's a error that's not easy to fix. Sometimes it persists for a day or something. You will be hot fixing stuff, probably introducing more bugs than have been there before. Yeah, so yeah, monitoring to the rescue. Let's see. I will be going through a few components. The first component here is a log aggregator. For this we are using PaperTrail. It's a SaaS solution, which was one of the main aspects why we've picked the tools we have at first place, because we wanted to start with them quickly without setting up our own servers. It's quite easy to start with, yeah, and really easy to use. But what is a log aggregator? Yeah, or more precisely, what does it? Yeah, it gathers logs, quite simple. It also indexes them, so it's easy to search them. And we have chronology. So if I have to find an error from Friday evening, I can simply go to that time and see what has been thrown at that time, and yeah, locate the error quite quickly. Stuff can be grouped by environments. So if the error occurred on the production system, I want to only see the log files of the production system. I don't care about staging or anything. Another thing that might not be obvious at first is that I want to give people access to log files that should not access the service via SSH. I don't want trainees to access the live environment via SSH. Might not be a good idea. Also, the QA guys, support guys, whatever, they probably should not get access via terminal to any servers. But I can make logs available to them, as this has a web interface and they can simply search through there and access their data. And quite handy, I can add alerts and messages. This is one of the points of the automatic monitoring, because with these alerts I can be informed about problems when they occur, or when something is happening, when something strange is happening. Yeah, so this is the interface of PaperTrail. It's a bit cut on this thing. You can see on the left side there would be the server names, then the log file names, and the log message. Down below you have a search field where you can simply search for stuff inside these messages. You can group by the environment. You can get to a specific time here. Yeah, nothing fancy. It does its job and is quite handy. Some of the alerts, we have a few of them here, not too many, because we're using different tools to monitor, and we can get more out of other tools and dashboards. If you would simply use a log aggregator, you might have some more alerts here. You can define different outputs, endpoints. So we are using HipChat in our company. So HipChat is one of the services that are being alerted. Yeah, and for the alerts you can define different things like the frequency or minimum number of matching events. So sometimes if you get messages in a log file like up to 10 messages per minute, it's okay. But if you suddenly get 50 or 100 messages, that might be a problem. So you can define the alerts just like you wish. Yeah, but how is this being done? Yeah, the Unix Linux system logs, quite straightforward. Just fetch the kind of log you have, and add this to the syslog ngconfig or anything. But in most of the times, you want to fetch your application logs. So this is not that super interesting. It's more like this one. So with PaperTrail, you install remote syslog, which pushes the log files to PaperTrail. You simply configure all the log files you want to push, the destination, so the credentials to your PaperTrail account, whatever. It looks quite similar with other services. So if you're using Elastic in your company and maybe already have Kibana set up or anything, there is a beat called FileBeat where you can push log files directly to Elasticsearch or to Logstash or anything, and it looks pretty similar. You simply install FileBeat and define the log files, and you're done. So it's quite straightforward. Okay, the next component, metrics aggregator. For this tool, we're using Librato. As before, this is a SaaS solution, which was important for us to start quickly. It's also quite cheap to start with and easy to use. So pretty much the same. But what is a metrics aggregator? Or more precisely, what are metrics? You might know metrics from hardware metrics, like what is my CPU load, what is the status of my disk drives or anything. So it's but in our case, we're more talking about metrics of our application. So I don't want to know what state the hardware of the server is in. I want to know what state my application is in. But still just numbers, just like in the hardware metrics, in the numbers, but with a context. These are some of the metrics we have, and they just have a name. You can define it in the way you like. We somehow made it a bit more domain-driven so that we know what it is, and we can define it as fine as we want. And in the end, we still have just some numbers at a specific time, and that's it. But with these numbers, we can create dashboards, just like this one, with all the data you want. And this dashboard can tell me if everything is right or something is wrong. Even though if you don't know what's right or wrong, by definition, then you can't do much with this screenshot. One of the things down to the left here, this is a diagram of Beanstalk, of the Beanstalk jobs that are currently in queue. Okay, it's not visible. At one point, these jobs just raced to like 40 or 50,000 in the queue. At this point, there is a maximum of 100 or 200 in that queue. And if I get this peak, I know something is going wrong. The queue is getting fuller and fuller. Maybe a process was killed. Maybe I just pushed too many jobs into that queue that can't be handled in time. Anything like that. Also like the task duration or anything. But I have to know how the data is supposed to look. I have this screen on a monitor in front of my desk, so I will always see the state of our application. And as soon as something changes in a way that I don't expect, I can quickly have a look into this and find out what's happening here. We also have the possibility to define alerts. Like in this case, for the indexer, I want to be informed if the backlog is too large, so the indexer can't index products as fast as they're being pushed into it. Quite similar to the log aggregator. You also have some notification services. We also just push to HipChat and send out an email. Also quite straightforward. How is this being done? Pretty much just by a post. You post the data you have to Librato, and that's it. You can define a name for that measurement. Pick a name that's as it tells you as good as possible what is behind it. And just a value. You can also add some tags to it if you want to add an environment or anything. Yep. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that's about the metrics aggregator. And there is a third component of our logging, of our monitoring, the performance analysis. So for this, we're using a tool called TightWays. Again, a SaaS solution, cheap to start with and easy to use. But back then, we've worked together with the company who developed this. So one of the other main reasons why we are using TightWays and not other tools like Relic or anything is probably because, yeah, we've worked together with the developers of this tool. But why should we use performance analysis, especially if the application is not slow right now? We want to recognize irregular changes. So if we're running into some bottlenecks or anything, we might want to know that early enough to handle that bottleneck before it gets troublesome. We also want to gather some intel. So if something is getting slow, I want to know if it's a slow SQL statement, if there are some statements executed over and over and over again, anything like that. Yeah, to know what's happening, we have a dashboard for the different components we have. I will be informed about changes in the response time, how many requests per minute are fired, or anything. The error rate, yeah, just got worse by 100%, but 0.33 is quite okay, I think. Yeah, so this is an overview of one of the components. Yeah, we have 90 milliseconds in the average, so nothing to worry about right now. And yeah, you get some overview of the development of the request time over the last week or the last month. So we just have some data in comparison, how it looked a while ago, and yep. If you want to get some information about what is happening, you can go into detail of a specific action. So this is a history of the public controller start action. And I can see that sometimes the garbage collector is a problem here and takes some time. We have some slow database calls, very slow database calls. Yeah. So here we can see that something is going wrong, even though it's rather weird because sometimes it's quite fast and sometimes it's not. So we had to investigate there, and it in fact was a bottleneck that showed up. And yep. How is this being done? Yeah, you install an extension for PHP. And for TightWays, you install the TightWays daemon that is pushing the data to TightWays itself. In the end, you just include the extension, and optionally, you define a framework. In our case, it's Symfony, not WordPress. That completely depends. If you don't use any framework, then you don't just set this value, and yeah. But you get some additional information if you do. Okay, awesome. But is this really necessary? Do you really need all this stuff? Because altogether, it can become quite expensive, even if it's easy to start. If you get into several gigabytes of log files every month, like 30 gigabytes or something, it can quickly become rather expensive to log all this stuff. For us, it worked quite well because there were a few things where this really saved my ass, as I'm responsible for DevOps, and if a server crashes, then I'm the guy who has to fix this. One time, the Beanstalk queue was running full. That was the example where you suddenly had 40,000 jobs in that queue. At that point in time, it was okay. But I recognized that something is going wrong. If this would have went on for a few days, probably Beanstalk would have crashed, And at that time, we haven't saved them binary in a binary or something in a bin log. All the jobs were in memory. So if the process would have crashed, all the jobs would have been gone. Not a good thing. Another time, the response time increases by 200 to 300%. Sounds a lot. In the end, we had 200 or 300 milliseconds in the average. Nothing you would recognize if you just open up the page. An increase from 100 to 200 milliseconds or 300 milliseconds, nobody would recognize that. So that was quite handy. With the performance analysis, we've seen that there is a bottleneck that we have to take care of. At that time, it was not troublesome, not too troublesome, but it would have become troublesome if suddenly some new suppliers would have joined the platform and uploaded a few 100,000 products or something. Then we would have been in trouble. Also, supervisor tasks were killed. In the metrics overview, I also had a metric about how many of the supervisor tasks are running right now. If one of them is crashing, I recognize that in the matter of some minutes. And I can restart it, and that's it. So the customer will not recognize that products are not being synced anymore or anything, because I can restart it quickly. And if it's not possible to restart, in general, if supervisor task should be restarted if it was killed out of some reason. If there's some exception, I can take care of that. And hopefully be able to start that task again in the matter of a few minutes or an hour or something. Or specific tasks crash due to exceptions. In the log overview, if there is a large stack trace, you quickly see that. So if you just open up the log aggregator once in a while and scroll through the log files, you can identify exceptions quite quickly and see if something is going wrong. But more in detail, why should you use logs? If you have more complex applications with many different components, that might be a good idea. Then you probably have many different log files for each component. Maybe you have an environment with multiple servers and you don't want to dig into each separate server to find the log files. That's always also a good idea. Also, if different people would benefit of an access to the logs. Through the log aggregator, it's easy to give them access. So, that might be a good idea. Sometimes log files are also located on remote machines you can't access directly. In the web development world, that's not that common, but sometimes you just really have machines that are not connected to the internet and on a on-premise servers or anything, and you just have to ask for access and maybe have to wait for like 15 or 20 minutes or anything. If you can manage to give them outbound access to the internet so that they can push their log files, then you are able to access the log files without accessing the machine directly, which can be quite handy. Yeah, for the metrics. The most important thing if you want to use metrics, or if you can use metrics, is there any data that can be tracked? Yeah, that can be quite important. So if you don't really have any data that could be tracked, you can't use metrics. So it's handy if you have processes that have a clearly defined start or end. Then you can track how many processes have been started. Did they succeed or did they fail or anything? But it's not always the case. So sometimes you just don't have this strict workflow, and it's hard to define data that could be tracked. Is there a lot of stuff going on in the background? That's one of the things that might be interesting, like in our case, the supervisor tasks. If you have stuff that's running in the background, you can't really check it directly as long as you don't access the machine. You might want to find a way to translate this into metrics and be able to log this. because then you can also create alerts and be informed if tasks were killed or anything. Yeah, like I said before, the clearly defined workflows, if you have them, you can probably translate that into metrics. That might be handy. And sometimes it's even the sales department. They want to have numbers. In the overview, we had something like, hey, we have nearly 700,000 products right now. They might want to have something like that. Might also be handy to find some arguments to get this running. Performance. Sorry. For performance analysis, it's important if you really have complex tasks that take a lot of performance, or that potentially will need a lot of performance. If you have just very, very simple tasks that are not likely to cost a lot of performance, or that are not likely to run into bottlenecks, you might not need performance analysis. It really depends. But as soon as you have a more complex application that could run into performance issues, you expect more and more customers to jump on that platform, then you really might want to have this performance analysis at hand, just to analyze this. And of course, is your performance already bad? If it is, you really might want to introduce this performance analysis to find out what is happening, and to fix these bugs. Quite obvious, but yeah. Okay, I've been quite quick, so that's already it. Does anyone have some questions? Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question about alerting, because you got alerts from your log aggregator, your metrics aggregator, your performance analyzer, and I suppose for your monitoring system.
Yes.
Do you aggregate the alert themselves, or because if something goes wrong, like memory saturation, your performance goes down, every application will send you alerts?
Yes. In our case, we, like I've shown, we don't have that many alerts from the logging, so most of the alerts will be sent out from our metrics aggregator. So we rarely run into that problem that we are spammed by multiple aggregators at once if something goes wrong. And yeah, they are not really collected at some point, so they just get into our HIP chat. And yeah, if something really goes wrong, we are being spammed with alerts. That's of course a thing. Yeah, we don't really handle that right now, but that really depends on the service. Maybe you can do something about that. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for a great speech.
Thank you.
To the previous question, I would add that personally, our company uses Zabbix for monitoring, if you know, and there you can configure dependencies between alerts. So in case dependencies between services and their alerts. For example, you have alert that the queue has too many messages, and you have alert that there are less than 2 workers alive. Yeah, so in case you have more than 2 workers alive, the error about too many messages will not occur, because they're more important problem that will probably fix the next one. And my question was, do you use some automated conflict problem resolution, like something happened and you have a script that automatically tries to fix it, or you just get notifications and do it on your own?
Right now we just get notifications and do it on our own. We don't often run into problems right now, so if there's something going wrong, it would be hard to find some automatic way to fix this. There are really special cases where some data of a customer is corrupt. Something is wrong with the data with products he sent to the platform or anything. So it are really special cases in our platform when something really goes wrong. Yeah, that's
Thank you for the answer.
Yep.
Hello. You talk about SaaS products that you use. You use multiple ones. Is it difficult to coordinate the different problems in HipChat? And have you tried to use a nested solution like Elastic, for example, because you have a lot of data? So
we are currently migrating to the Elastic stack, so that we migrate to Kibana, or having Kibana as a front end and processing the logs with Logstash. You have more control over that if you use something like that, but it's harder to start with. Especially for log files in Kibana, if you really want to process them in a nice way, you really have to put multiple days of configuration effort into that solution, and there's a much higher burden of getting started with that than just using these SaaS solutions where you simply push the log files and they're taking care of that. But yeah, we are looking at that. We're currently migrating, and it gives us more power to analyze that things. But yeah, the burden
Thank
is
you.
higher. Yep. Any more questions? Okay, then thank you for listening, and yeah, have a nice rest of the PHP tour.